thanks for joining us. I'm Mary Connor. I'm super excited to be having this conversation at this intersection of purpose and brand, or purpose and PR. As she shared, this is important to us at Common Goal because for many years we've been really pressing the football industry to embed purpose into its very DNA. And I would love to just take a second to shout out World Football Summit because many of you may know Common Goal for our 1% Pledge initiative. And World Football Summit was one of the first to take that pledge 9 years ago. And that's built an amazing partnership that spanned continents and countries and events for many years. So I just want to appreciate World Football Summit. But what Common Goal exists to do is really to make sure that football takes responsibility for and sees the opportunity of football to shape and change lives around the world, in communities everywhere. Football is doing just that every single day. And so how we, those that love football, those that invest in football, those that are governing football, how we translate our actions into meaningful community impact is everything. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm incredibly privileged to be on stage with two Common Goal partners that we're working with in different contexts. We'll kind of frame this as a conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to kind of build a picture of how you can take this back and embed purpose into whatever segment of the industry you're working in. So I'll start here to my right, Gustavo. Gustavo Cecilio is leading 2026 FIFA World Cup for Frito-Lay that has multiple brands that you'll see in the upcoming World Cup. And I learned this is not the first FIFA World Cup that you've actually been really at the center of. So here in the World Football Summit, there's many folks that are either in the industry or wanting to get into the industry even further. Your job kind of seems like a dream job at the intersection of the world's biggest sporting event and one of the world's leading brands. So tell us kind of how you came into that role and like how you see your role at this unprecedented moment.
Yeah. So first of all, Mary, thanks for the invitation to be here. I feel privileged to be among great leaders from the soccer community, from the soccer business. I think I start with my personal story. I grew up in Brazil, and for every Brazilian, soccer is a religion, right? With 8 years old, around 8 years old, I started playing soccer as a goalkeeper. But I stopped playing soccer with 10 years old and moved to basketball, which was a terrible decision.
But be a goalkeeper that says something about
It was the worst decision ever. I should have kept the goalkeeper, and probably I would have much better future in the sport. But this passion came from this time, and for me, during my career, I've been working in CPG companies for more than 20 years. And in this most recent assignment in the last 12 years in Frito-Lay, I was involved in several other soccer-driven initiatives. So I participated into an initiative named Team of Champions. I had a crucial role when we set up a partnership with Leagues Cup from MLS. I've been doing a lot of work with the Lay's brand and Messi as a celebrity. And then FIFA started with FIFA in 2022, then FIFA Women's World Cup in 2023, and then now I have the privilege to lead the team that is around the FIFA 26 World Cup. So for me, it's been such a great journey, and it is one of those jobs that you enjoy every day. There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of work, but there's a lot of enjoyment in it.
Yeah. I was going to say, being a goalkeeper, you get good at taking risks and managing risks. So I can see that in the way you're tasked with coordinating across 3 countries, 104 matches. I have this quote that I wrote down that you shared heading into this moment. You described the mission of what you wanted to achieve in this moment as needing to connect fans to your brands, connect meaningful stadium moments, engage employees, and bring forward purpose, culture, and innovation. To do all of those things across multiple markets, multiple languages, so many host cities, multiple brands within Frito-Lay, like you're kind of the center midfielder. So how do you bring this vision to life, and what are just a couple of things you would share that you've learned?
Yeah, for us in Frito-Lay, we've been involved with other sports partnerships like NFL or NBA, but FIFA in 2026 brought this level of scale and complexity that comes from the size, how many countries, how many teams, and how many cities in the United States involved, 11 host cities. The first thing we did in 2025, you would think, okay, we're now half of 2026. In 2025, January 2025, we assembled this team that would be leading all the FIFA 26 initiatives for Frito-Lay. And the first thing, I was named to lead this team, and the first thing we did was, we need to start this with the consumer, right? And then we need to understand how we're going to align all the different initiatives that we have inside this big FIFA program, and how we're going to create governance among all of this. How are we going to control and make sure everything is happening? So for us, when we started in this consumer journey, the first thing we did is, who are the FIFA fans across America? And we learned a lot from the different segments. For example, we learned that a lot of them, they were the die-hard fans, people that leave soccer, that die for soccer. But there was a lot of, there was a big segment as well that we called this the bandwagon fan. So there were consumers that they were not that involved, but when the World Cup is approaching, then they hop in the bandwagon and they become very involved. And all of our strategies from communication, fan experience, retail, internal engagement, they were designed behind this strategy and behind what consumers want for the World Cup, how our brands can show in a unique, authentic, and very consistent way. And for us, like making sure that we are with the consumer in the entire consumer journey across the World Cup.
Thanks so much for sharing. So we're gonna get into some of the ways that you activated that purpose within this framework. But I wanna turn to Melissa here, who leads partnerships and strategic engagement for Soccer Forward, which is the 2026 FIFA World Cup Legacy Foundation of U.S. Soccer Federation. So her work spans Soccer Forward's mandate from U.S. Soccer to use soccer as a force for good. And it's been an incredible privilege, again, as common goal, to partner with Soccer Forward Foundation to bring Soccer Forward Fests to life, a community activation initiative that now spans over 300 fests registered across the country. So Melissa, I think you also kind of have a dream job sitting at this intersection of a hosting federation, but sitting with community and social impact and brand engagement, responsible for translating those partnerships. So tell us a bit about what is Soccer Forward, first of all, because I know it's new, and what's kind of your role? How did you come into that role?
Yeah, sure. So you touched on it a little bit. Soccer Forward is the U.S. Soccer Federation's legacy of this World Cup. So the goal is, yes, we've been working to get to the World Cup and preparing for it, but really the number one piece when we leave these games is, what's the impact we made? How are people reacting to the sport? How many more kids are involved? How are we utilizing the sport as a force for good to make an impact on people's lives? So the sport is amazing, it's a beautiful game, but really our true legacy and our metric of success is what happens after this tournament. So that's where we come in. We're super excited, and it is a dream job. It's amazing. How I got to this, I played soccer like many young girls. It was the first sport I ever played. I think I was about 4, and I played till high school. I was not very good, but I loved it. And then I went to college, and I worked for a decade plus at the NFL, so the American side of football, which was amazing from a business aspect. But I never worked in the soccer world, so I've been here about a year and trying to bring some of my experiences from the NFL here, and then really learn a lot about the soccer world and how we can push the sport forward in the U.S.
Amazing. Yeah, I know we've talked a bit about how those can translate, and the NFL does some work around Super Bowl legacy, and so I want to just touch for a moment on kind of a criticism of legacy, right? Is that the lights are there, brands show up, and then they leave, and Soccer Forward is set up so that this World Cup can be a beginning and not an end, and it can shape the next kind of phase and era of soccer across the United States. Your job is to bring brands along that journey. So, how are you framing this opportunity to them to see it not as a moment, but as a legacy, truly? And what are you hearing from them that's really resonating?
I think the superpower of Soccer Forward being a part of the federation is we represent the sport in the country. And with that, when corporate partners come to us, they're very used to working with teams and leagues that are a piece of the puzzle. We bring the puzzle together. So the cohesion of the soccer ecosystem in the United States, as many know, is pretty fragmented. And how are we able to bring everyone along the journey with us and uplift and empower the amazing grassroots organizations that are doing incredible work on the ground, but how do we bring in corporate dollars to support that? And how do we bring in our U.S. soccer members and all of the clubs across the country, the competitive clubs, to be a part of that path together? So I think brands really enjoy working with us because we're able to do that. They can actually uplift their other portfolios because of their partnership with us, so we can bring different pieces of the puzzle together to do that with them.
Is there, hopefully we'll get into some specifics. I think we're actually going to talk now specifically about particular initiatives that you're both working on. One that obviously I'm incredibly excited about, we've gotten to partner with a Frito-Lay brand, Quaker, on the Quaker Player Escort program. So in a second, we're going to queue up a little video that gives you just a taste of the sentiment of it and what the community impact would look like. But just to frame it up for you, this program includes over 30 community organizations spanning multiple host cities that have been working in these host cities long before the World Cup came and will be there for long after the World Cup leaves. And so the impact of inviting player escorts to come from these community organizations was a choice that Quaker made to have that be the legacy, to say this is an asset and we can embed it into communities where the ripple effect of that on the family, on the community, on the organization will be long lasting. So if we have the video, just want to give you a quick look at some of who they are. Thanks for sharing. So I'm constantly, like, as we're watching this World Cup journey unfold for the teams that will play, you see the roster reveal, you see the jersey reveal. So like all of that is happening with these player escorts too. They got their jerseys, and I'm constantly getting little notes from our team about why this matters to them. And I just want to read one that I literally got today that I read to Gustavo earlier. One of the player escorts in Philadelphia said, "I once made a wish that I could go to a World Cup, and it actually came true. I was nervous it wasn't real." And there's just so many of these. You all need to know that these families are changed forever, is what that Player Escorts organization had to say about it. So just, what does this program mean to Quaker? And for you personally, you said, growing up as soccer as a religion. What does this mean for what the World Cup can really be?
Yeah, I think from a Quaker brand perspective, it means a lot because it connects very well with the brand strategy. So Quaker, we really want to incentivize and fulfill this idea of kids reaching their full potential. And we want to do this through the concept of whole body nutrition. So for us, kids practicing sports, living sports, having good nutrition has 100% fit with what the brand stands for. I think for me, personally, being able to participate and to work with you guys on the initiative is just one of the biggest personal fulfillments it could ever have. So if I bring back the 8-year-old Gustavo, I would be happy going to the game. But to enter in the pitch, holding hands with a soccer star, feeling the emotions of the crowd of the World Cup, this is something you're never going to forget in your life. And being able to provide this to around 2,000 kids that they are coming from underserved communities, so probably they wouldn't have this chance to even go to the game, is it just really fills my heart with joy. It just makes me happy, excited, and I think having the Quaker brand connected to these stories, for me, it's awesome. Also, I want to acknowledge that having the partnership with Come and Go is key on this. I think the authenticity that this partnership brought to the entire engagement with the communities and with the kids was key for the success of the play escorts with Quaker.
Well, I didn't ask you to say that, but I appreciate that, and it makes me think of when you're working in kind of two sides of football, or you're just in different worlds all the time, it can often feel like these worlds are far apart, right? Like the experience of that young person in that community in Philadelphia, and the experience of what you're looking at data and fan engagement and all these things. And so to have a partnership where we can speak honestly about those, what are the needs, how do we deliver this? It takes a mutual trust and a willingness to not have it be a power dynamic or a transaction, but truly like we're co-creating something that is going to be really impactful. I just want to name, it's not just Quaker. Your Lay's brand is also engaged around the world and bringing young people to the World Cup, getting actually to see a match right here in Mexico City in a couple weeks. So like when you zoom out as a World Cup sponsor, Frito-Lay, like how important is it to the brand as a whole, to the, it gets to be meaningful to you because you get to work on it, but how does that sort of ripple to the brand as a whole and to think about community impact and how this brand is showing up?
Yeah, it is key part of everything we do, because I think our belief is the purpose initiative by itself cannot be disconnected from the entire initiative. So for us, for example, the Lay's Replay is an initiative that we have for years where we create fields in underserved communities from recyclable materials, and those fields, they develop youth soccer in the community. So we are replicating this again for FIFA World Cup, but this is not a one-off. This is a commitment that we have consistently for years. And I think when we look at the play escorts and the efforts with the World Cup, our ambition is to really create things that they are consistent, they are impactful, and for us it's about the consumer, and the consumer is about the community. So that's where we merge the purpose and with the key of the business strategy.
Amazing. And as the ecosystem, you said the whole puzzle of U.S. soccer, like a lot of those kids on the screen are working in community organizations that Soccer Forward works with and exists to support. And I'm gonna steal your World Cup campaign slogan, keeping score of what matters. I would say 2,000 kids walking out from underserved communities is a score that matters. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about, practically, what are some of those legacy initiatives that Soccer Forward is leading that you think will go forward from this World Cup?
Yeah, so keeping score of what matters is our messaging or our thematic for this World Cup. And what that means is the score on the scoreboard, of course, matters, but what matters just as importantly or even more is the score off the pitch. So, how does soccer help increase confidence? How are graduation rates going up due to kids being involved in the sport? How are they playing in safe spaces? How are they making new friends, et cetera? So all of those have a score associated with them. So we created a PSA around that, and a lot of our messaging is tied to that notion that it's much bigger than the sport on the pitch. One of the ways we were able to bring that to life is in partnership with Common Goal around our Soccer Forward Fest. So our goal was, yes, the World Cup is in cities across the United States, and yes, there are fan fests, but how are we able to bring the World Cup to all of these communities that don't have that touch point, which is many, many in the United States. So while we know we can't be everywhere, we wanted to create something that empowered these communities to be a part of this movement with us. How do we bring everyone into the fold and bring that excitement to these places that are far to reach? So in partnership with Common Goal, we were able to create Soccer Forward Fest, and Soccer Forward Fest is really a resource and a toolkit and providing kind of turnkey ways for communities to engage with the World Cup. And we, like you said, I think we're actually at just about 400 fests across the United States. So that was 100 days prior to the World Cup, March 3rd, through the end of the tournament, where these organizations will host some for the first time and some not, but something that feels like they're a part of this bigger movement with us. So that's one initiative we've been super proud of and excited about. And then our other that will really be a legacy of this World Cup, and probably the most prominent coming out of the World Cup, will be increasing access to soccer in schools across the United States. So we know that there are a lot of kids that can't afford to play the sport in the U.S., and part of Soccer Forward's goal is to expand the accessibility of the sport. It should be the most accessible sport in the world, and it is in many places, but in the United States, there's an issue right there. And we're really trying to bring soccer to where kids are, which is in their school. You know, kids are in their school environment for most of their day. It's their safe place. And we want to make sure that the sport is meaningfully played there, that we're providing resources to teachers to do so. So we're, with Bank of America, we've created a framework where teachers and educators in school systems can come in and request resources from us, both equipment, physical equipment, of course, you know, curriculum and guides, et cetera, and hoping to really use this excitement of this summer to push it forward for the coming years.
That's gonna leave a lasting legacy, and thinking about connecting all of these dots, and also working with a brand like Bank of America that is a sponsor of the team and the federation, but embedding this community impact goal into that. You know, like we just talked about, sometimes the brand goals and the community goals can be here, and you know, at Common Goal, we're trying to weave those things close together so that especially community organizations like the 30 plus involved in this, this initiative really feel heard and valued and equally seen. What do you find to be some of the filters or guardrails? Like you're trying to weave those two things together and go to a Bank of America and say, hey, this is worth investing in.
Yeah.
And also it's worth investing in a way that communities need, want, and will embrace, and not feel like it's put upon them. So what are some guardrails?
I think there's two pieces to that answer. One is actually, you know, the product, so to say, that we're putting in front of a corporate partner. So, you know, our number one goal is to make sure that when we are going to support a community, we are going to that community first, understanding, hearing from them what they need, how they need it, who they already work with, taking that information, packaging something and bringing it to a partner. So what we do not want to do is say, you know, hey, corporate brand XYZ, you know, here is clinics. You can have 4 clinics and they're tied to the men's national team matches. That's not helpful. That doesn't push the needle. So instead, we're going into communities, we're asking how they need soccer to fulfill goals and objectives that they have. Mental health, for instance, is something that across the United States, like people are looking for ways to battle mental health and to help in that space. So how can we utilize soccer to do so? So I think hearing from communities is the first answer. And the second is really just how are we able to really make this bigger than the contract and the agreement. So I think a lot of corporate partnerships and sponsorships for those that work in that space, there's a lot of, you know, we're going to give you dollars and we're going to then take your asset and put your logo on something. And we really try hard to create a brand new agreement that is specifically tied to community. So the entire structure of the agreement from the business aspect of things is structured completely differently. It's centered on philanthropy with some brand assets worked in. So that's something I was able to take from my prior role and really help kind of infuse into this work of how do you kind of flip it on its head? How do you take what used to happen and instead of adding to it and shifting it and massaging it, how do you actually create a new way of doing business? Like brands don't need to do it how they've always done it. There is benefit in a new way of doing business. So we've seen ROI in that. We've seen kind of this shift. It's not always PR as the result for community. And I think that's where a mindset needs to still progress a little bit. Sometimes there is consumer change in behavior based on brands being involved, and you can actually track that through data and digital assets and things tied to these programs.
Yeah, and football, a lot of the discussion the past days has been about how fast-changing football culture is. The world is, it feels like things are changing every day technologically. We were talking about this, within World Football Summit. You hear about new technologies that probably didn't exist a year ago, and so how you keep up with that, in some ways that can feel overwhelming, but what you're saying is like, hey, this is an opportunity to actually rewrite the playbook
100%.
and say, hey, the traditional way has been this funnel of brand assets, and then at the bottom is, okay, how can we activate in community by flipping that and saying, hey, we're centering community and purpose first, and the brand goals can flow from that.
Yeah, and if I can just add one more thing, Mary and I were talking last night, and I explained that with the Super Bowl from the NFL standpoint, there's a commitment to host the Super Bowl, that there's a matching $1 million commitment to the NFL. And I do think there's a world in which when corporations sign on for agreements tied to the World Cup or tied to U.S. soccer sponsorships, that can be worked in. There can be a commitment to have a certain amount of dollars specifically associated to philanthropy. And I think that's kind of this new way of thinking of how do you restructure some of these deals.
Yeah, and I think hearing that it's not a given, that it's not automatic, also makes me appreciate when brands choose to put that forward. As we're kind of wrapping up, I guess I'd just be curious hearing Melissa talk, and is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would want to share from your experience working on this World Cup, but also, you've seen multiple World Cups, 2022 and before, so.
Yeah. I would say for me, we are talking about the development of the sport, and we're talking about making it more accessible, but I have a view as well that soccer is the most democratic sport ever. A kid can play with socks folded, and that's not possible in any other sport. So I'm very optimistic about the future of soccer, and I think soccer is the biggest sport globally already, but it's fast-growing sport in U.S., and it's going to continue that path. When we look at data, it is the fastest-growing sport. It is like you look at the communities of Gen Z or multicultural. It over-indexes those communities big time. And I think having the World Cup, last time we had the World Cup was 1994, long time ago. And I think the biggest audience ever was in that World Cup.
Most tickets, yeah.
And now we're having a much bigger, so I think there's a lot of things going on that would develop the sports further. And we as Frito-Lay and personally, I have a very optimistic view about how we're going to continue to engage with soccer and how the sport overall is going to develop from youth to professional. You get a lot more professional as a sport as well. And we'll see in the future soccer in the United States being one of the top 3 sports for sure.
Well, I know we already talked about your Brazil roots and that the Women's World Cup coming to Brazil next year, which Frito-Lay will be a sponsor of as well, and thinking about how we can make this cycle really include all of those moments with the Men's World Cup and the Women's World Cup and the Olympics coming after that, and how you can kind of draw a thread through this. And so with that, I know that probably makes you sweat thinking like, oh, there's another one after this. So like maybe just think about, 8 days till this World Cup, 39 days of the World Cup. What are you most excited about? No predictions necessary. I won't put anyone on the spot.
For this World Cup, I'm really excited about the ability to engage more youth in our country in the sport. It is the fastest growing sport, but there is right now an understanding that you may have to pay to play the sport, and I really hope that if we do our jobs correctly, we help shift that narrative and we help provide opportunities for anyone that wants to play soccer in the United States as a kid to be able to go out and find a place to play. So for this World Cup, that's what I'd say. I'm very excited for the Women's World Cup. I think we will be announcing some work as we get closer to the Women's World Cup tied to a focus on why girls drop out of the sport. I mean, every woman in this room probably understands that. There is a point in time which a lot of girls leave the sport, and being a woman in sport and a woman in soccer, it's a passion for me to figure out why. And we of course know some reasons, but we're doing massive research right now on this and figuring out how we change that. And very excited for the Women's World Cup to be able to launch all of that work as well.
Amazing. Well, couldn't be a better plug for tomorrow's conversation at 10 a.m. Around legacy by design and what's coming for the Women's World Cup. But just want to really appreciate you both for sitting in conversation with me and for what you're doing to embed purpose. I hope you all took something away about, like, this is possible. It's not a nice to have. It's not, maybe we'll do that if we get to it. Like, this is possible. People are doing it. It should be the norm. And there are examples of it becoming the norm and not becoming a nice to have. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
enjoy the cup.
Thank you. Thank you.